I would like to welcome to the stage Mr. Lior Nuchi, partner and head of the Israel Practice Group at Alston and Bird. Mr. Nuchi.
בסדר גמור, בוקר טוב, קוראים לי, השם שלי ליאור נוחי, אני עורך דין בארצות הברית ופה בישראל. But this isn't about me, this is about Eyal Waldman, who I have a pleasure of interviewing. We just heard that the existence of a country depends on sustained and continued economic growth. The country gets that growth only because people like Eyal exist, and because the country has produced people like Eyal who actually work hard to build the economy. And Eyal is unique in that he has been a founder of the high-tech miracle in Israel, and has continued to build some of the most important companies in the country. And this whole group here, the government, the lawyers, we all exist to help people like Eyal do what they do. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of talk to Eyal about how he does what he does and help us sort of figure out how we can help him. So Eyal, maybe we go a little bit to the early days, the early 90s, when you founded Galileo. Very different country, agricultural economy, very little venture capital available. The government was just beginning the Yozma program to start the tech industry. How did you get into startups? How did you build your first company? Tell us a little bit about the changes that you've seen in the last 20 years.
So regarding Galileo, I was Okay, so first, thank you for inviting me. Great meeting schedules here. But so Galileo, I was an engineer at Intel, became a leader, and then thought it's about time after 3.5 years to start our own company. So my ex-wife actually thought it's a reason to go out with my guys, with my friends, but like every week, we went out to another bar and started thinking of what we can do as an independent company, an Israeli company. And after like 3-4 months, there wasn't something that we really caught on that said, okay, this is going to be a great idea and going to be a great success. So the second option we had is actually to go and ask US or Japanese companies to open a design center in Israel. So we started calling US CEOs, and one of them was Len Perham from IDT. We gave him a full presentation why we think it's a great idea for IDT to open a design center in Israel, and he introduced me to Avigdor Willens, who was already talking to Len into bringing or starting a company here in Israel. And IDT invested with the Bird Foundation some money to start this company. So Len introduced me to Avigdor. We started the company 4 guys in 93. In 97, we took the company public in NASDAQ. And it was a good success. Then it was sold after I left for like $2.7 billion to Marvell. So we started by understanding that we want to do something new in Israel. We started as a kind of a collaboration with an American company. They didn't want to acquire Mellanox, so we stayed independent, and then we went and IPO and stayed independent.
And my recollection is it started out as a company doing controller chips. And you were really the first person who said, let's go into networking. The internet was just beginning to happen, and you sort of saw that that was going to be the future of the industry. Tell us a little bit about that and sort of what has gone on in networking and how you've built a whole networking business and how you had that vision.
First, I think it's always a team success. It's not a one-person success. I get a lot of credit, but it's a whole company and it's a whole team that's working together, doing brainstorming and succeeding together, and it's a very important point. And if you don't have a good team, also a legal counsel, it's very hard to succeed. So you need to make sure that all elements, all parts in the company are in place and are understanding how to work in a team effort to make it successful. So yeah, we understood that data is growing very fast. And if you look at what's happening today, data is growing really exponentially, and you can do more. And every day there's more devices that produce and consume data. Every day there's more applications that you use that consume and produce data. So you need to move the data around between storage and servers and between servers and servers. So with that, we understood that networking is going to be very important, also in Galileo, but I think now even more importantly at Mellanox, and creating or designing the pipes that move the data in the most efficient way, provide the best return on investment for large data centers. Nearly 80% of the times you touch your cell phones, you go through a Mellanox device in many of the Web 2 and cloud companies. So we understood that's the future and started doing networking.
You know, one of the things I noticed very early on is that you, unlike many other founders, you really sort of appreciated the role of lawyers, and you had very strong ideas about, you know, what they should do and how they should contribute. I remember you telling me early on that you thought that agreements, you know, should be written on what you called a PC board. You said, here's a PC board, it's about this size, and a good agreement, you should be able to write it on there. It was another way of saying it should be short and to the point. I've heard you talk to lawyers and sort of say, look, what you just said could have been reduced into 5 key sentences, and you're always very focused on getting people to just, you know, express exactly the essence of what is going on. You know, talk a little bit about that philosophy.
Yes, so first, before that, I think one of the most important things for the lawyer, whether it's an outside legal counsel or an inside legal counsel, is to make sure and protect the management and the board from doing mistakes. Because we want to be as aggressive as possible, we want to make as much money as we can, and we're striving always to find the envelope where we can still touch but stay on the white side, never go to the gray side. So when you talk to the legal side, what you need to make sure is they understand you want to run as fast as you can. They let you run as fast as you can, but they always mark the envelope so you never go outside. And there's no gray parts. There's only white and black. What's gray is black. And what's important about the legal counsel is that he can run as fast as you can. Now, if you make it too cumbersome and the legal documents are too long and they go into a lot of, which is sometimes unnecessary or a necessity because you need to cover everything. But I believe in simple things. If you can explain to your wife or to your daughter or son or what's going on in terms of the legal agreement, that means it's simple. Then you can comprehend and you can actually execute your legal commitments. If it's too complicated, if it's too cumbersome, it's going to be very hard. Less people will understand what's really going on, and you have a larger or a bigger probability to make a mistake. So when we work with our legal counsels, we try to make it very simple. Give us the really bullets on a PC board or something very short so we can comprehend, understand, agree, shake hands on that, and then you can write as much as you want as long as we understand those are the bullets that are written in your legal language. So I think this is very important. And you know, our legal Gideon Rosenberg is somewhere here. I haven't seen him this morning. And he's running very fast with us. When he started in the company, he had a lot of hair. Now less. But it's not because of me, but because we're running pretty fast and there's a lot of wind going on.
I understand he's growing a beard, though, is what he tells me. He's going to grow a beard. Okay. But you know, when you founded Mellanox, as I understand it, you put together a team. You had your you know, the founders, the venture capitalists, and you immediately had a lawyer who was involved in that. And you've worked closely with that team, including legal counsel, you know, for the last 17 years. Now, most people look at a founder, an entrepreneur like you, and they say, you know, this person just wants to run fast, build a company. Lawyers are, you know, he views lawyers as getting in the way.
But what you just articulated is a somewhat different vision where you rely on the lawyer to sort of help you figure out what the limits are and make sure you operate that way. Talk a little bit about that and just how you've involved lawyers in the whole process.
So many times you think what are the productive tasks or jobs within a company. I think legal counsel is one of the most productive elements within the company, because without that you can't really move. I've never made decisions without legal advice. Our legal counsel is part of the CEO team. He's involved in everything we do, sees all of the facets of the company, from operations, manufacturing, sales agreements, HR, and everything. I think as a CEO, as a leader that does not know the full extent of the law, you must have a counselor that's running alongside you, understand what's going on internationally, not just in Israel, but everywhere you operate. You need to find counsel or legal counsel and we operate, I think, in 26 companies or something like this, in every location, and make sure you're covered. It's like air cover or whatever. You want to run as fast as you can, but have someone run with you. So I think the legal team is one of the teams that enables us to be more productive, and we just consult with them all the time. From day one, I think it's important, because I think it's very significant to build the company right from the start, from the go. Because if you have not done that, you need to go backwards and you're backpedaling. To fix things once you want to go public or once you want to sell the company is very hard. If you start with a legal counsel from day zero, everything is clean, everything is in place, everything is documented, and then it's much easier to build the right company and the right structure and so on.
So you rely on Gideon participates in board meetings, management meetings. He knows what's going on and participates and has a role in all of that.
Yes, and sometimes even in places that about my compensation, stuff like this, where I'm not participating, the legal counsel is participating, so to guide the board on what to do and how to do things. Yes, so it's involved in everything that we're doing in the company.
And when do you decide what should be done in-house as opposed to bringing in outside counsel? How are you involved in that decision, and what do you look for in terms of outside counsel support?
I'm trying less to be involved, so it's basically Gideon's responsibility. But we try to do as much as we can in-house. But when we don't feel comfortable and we need to get additional help or we don't have the expertise, we go outside and get outside legal counsel.
Let's talk a little bit about a couple of other issues. I think you're one of the few, maybe, Israeli companies that has really built a whole international operation. You've bought a company in Norway, you've got Denmark, you've bought a company in Southern California, you have operations in China, Europe, you have people from all over the world working for you. Tell us a little bit about that. What's it like? Is it harder for an Israeli company to do than, say, a U.S. company, or not? What are some of the challenges and the benefits for Israelis to be operating in the world at that scale?
I don't think it's harder for an Israeli company compared to any U.S. company. I think everything is hard. So everything you try to do is very difficult. But you just need to find where the talent is located, find the right teams that can come and run with you and work with you alongside with, and they bring added value. Otherwise, it's not worth going to Denmark or to LA. And if you find them, you need to create the right bonding, obviously comprehend the legal environment in that location, and we took local legal advice in Denmark, and obviously in the US we have one, and then work with them. So you need to be careful in every territory you go. There's different rules in China than in Japan and in other areas. Make sure you're on top of everything, but I wouldn't say it's harder for an Israeli company. I don't think there's an advantage to be an Israeli company. There are in some, I think in China there is an advantage to be an Israeli company compared to US, so it's easier to do as an Israeli. Also in Russia and other places where there's more friction with the US entities, but otherwise it's pretty similar.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the diversity in the company. There's an article today about the hiring that you're doing in Gaza, You've hired in Ramallah. You have a lot of Israeli Arabs working at the company, Haredim. You've got many non-Jews in the United States. Your board has women. I think one was born in Lebanon. I think that's a very unique profile. Talk about that a little bit. How much is that a priority? How much should that be a priority? Is that a personal priority, or is that something that helps the business? Maybe you could comment on that.
Yes. So first, I think about 20% of our citizens are Arabs, and in Mellanox we have about 10% of our employees are Arabs. So I think it's a natural thing. We don't pick a person to come work with us because he's an Arab or a Jew or a Druze or anything. We pick a person to come work with us because he's good. So we do encourage this, and we don't care from what's your political or religious aspects and so on. Regarding Ramallah, Nablus, and now also Gaza, first there's talent out there in Palestine, and the talent out there is very cost effective. So you can get good people, and the price of like one Israeli engineer, you can hire 3 in Ramallah or even 5 in Gaza. And they're in the same time zone, and we can work with them. And I think it's also important because eventually we need to do peace. So everybody's talking about this. I think if we employ, if there's more contact, if we strive for contact, for working together, it doesn't mean that they love us or we love them, but what we do is we work together, we are one team, we succeed together. When our Israeli team went to Eilat for a weekend, we sent the Ramallah team to Bethlehem for a weekend. We treat them as equals. They have the right tasks, they also have the right obligations to the company. I think it's important. Now in Gaza, we decided that it's also time to go there. We have about 4 employees in Gaza, we'll go up to 10 in the near future. There's also smart people there. I think if we employ, if we, again, create contact, friction with the Palestinian people in Gaza, eventually we'll get to know better each other, learn maybe to live alongside. What I hope will happen, in Israel, all of the startups came from US-based design centers, Intel, IBM, National, Microsoft, and so on, and then started startups. What I hope will happen is that in the Palestinian territories, they will work for Israeli companies or American companies, and within, 10 years, they'll also be able to start their own high-tech startup and companies. And with that, the economy there will be better, and we'll be able to learn and live together. I think it's possible. By the way, the teams that we have in Ramallah and Nablus, we went through 3 wars or operations, Amud Anan, Sukaitan, Second Lebanon War, and so on, that didn't interfere with working relationships between the teams, and they continue executing as we did. So I think it's a good example. I wish more Israeli companies and Israeli CEOs employ people. There's a huge unemployment in the high-tech industry there. I think it's a good thing for them. It's a good thing for the Israeli companies. There's good talent, and we can use them. It's even sometimes more convenient than in India and others.
I'll ask one last question and then open it up for some questions. I think we're running a little bit out of time.
We can make it short and pick up the time for everybody.
Let's just jump. One of the things sometimes you have to do as outside counsel is negotiate between your CEO client and the cabinet member.
I just count the lawyers, and I have in my mind how much it's going to cost. So it's like, let's do it very, very short.
Let's open up the questions for the audience. And Gideon, feel free to ask whatever question you'd like to ask your CEO. But do we have who would like to ask a question? Somebody must want to send that. Somebody's got to go first, and then once somebody goes first, everybody else will raise their hands. In law school, the professor sometimes pointed people to get them to ask a question. So I think we have one back there. And do we have a way to bring a microphone? No, I think it's back there. Where is it? If I was back there. Yeah, can it go? Yeah, maybe come up closer and so we can hear you.
second.
Yeah, so how can management deal between tension between, or how can general counsel deal with tension between board and management? First, the general counsel is part of the management team. That should be a distinct observation, and he knows his place. The board is overseeing the management team, and then obviously we need to do what the board is asking the management to do. I think it's not the job of the general counsel to be a mediator. There should be very open communications between the board and the management team. I don't think the management team should use, unless it's really something unethical, the legal counsel to manage the board. There should be open discussions all over, so the board should know what they can or cannot do and what's legal and not right. So will the management. If there's misunderstandings or discussions between them and disagreements, if it's a legal question, then the legal counsel should step in and say this is the right thing to do, this is not the right thing to do. There should be a lot of education by the legal counsel to the board and to the management as to the right procedures, as to the right committees, and how should we do things, what are the right protocols. You should write this in the minutes, not write this in the minutes, or how should it appear in the minutes, what should we agree. There sometimes is a friction between management and board, but it's not the job of the legal counsel to be the mediator. He's responsible to say this is right, this is wrong, this is how we should figure it out, and work as a team. By the way, I think the legal counsel should report to the board if the management is doing unethical things. So there is a responsibility, and I see this, when I interview a legal counsel, so I always ask, okay, what do you see if the management wants to do something unethical, what do you do? It says, I talk to the CEO. Okay, we still decide to do an ethical thing. What do you do then? I go and talk again. I say, okay, but we still do unethical things. And I expect him to say, okay, I go to the board. And I let the board know. And then if it's still unethical, if it's a thing, whether he should resign or even go and report. Because I think it's the responsibility for legal counsel to keep the company very clean. And if the CEO is not the guy that does the right thing, the general counsel's responsibility is to report and do whatever is needed to keep the company clean. And by the way, I believe that a company behaves exactly like the moral or the ethic standards of the CEO. So you will see companies that are very, very ethical because this is the CEO. And you see companies that are not so ethical, and it's also because of just the CEO. So the whole company, including the legal counsel, is very, and I've seen this at Marvell and other companies, that they act exactly as the CEO.
We should probably point out that your company has never had any investigations. It's always been, if amount of litigation is very, very minor. I think that reflects on the ethics of the...
Yeah, we had only, I think, one legal that you helped us with, Broadcom, Avago. We had some investigations, but FINRA when we did acquisitions, the company is very clean. I know, and it's a lot to Gidon, there's no one bad bone in Mellanox.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a very important feeling. It makes you feel very strong, knowing that everything is clean in your company.
We probably have time for just one last question, and then you have to get on a conference call in a minute. Is there anybody who would like to ask the last question? If not, we'll probably let you get back to doing what you're good at, which is running a multi-billion-dollar company.
Talking less. Thank you very much.
Talking less, yeah.